Welcome to today's Live on ServiceNow webinar, where we'll be introducing the new process mining evaluation projects and walking you through how you can start to take advantage of them as soon as this session is over. Or for some of you who like to multitask, I'm sure you're going to be so excited that you're going to want to start while we're still wrapping things up here today. My name is Dan Grady. I'm part of the process mining product management team here at ServiceNow. There's a number of us on that team. Eduardo Giacconi's here, Syed Jaffrey, Bilal as well as here. Rosman, who will be hosting a Process Mining Academy session tomorrow, is unable to join us here today. But please, if you've not already signed up for that Academy session, you're going to want to sign up for that one. And partnering with me to deliver the content here today is Damien Pascal. Damien, do you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Looking forward to the conversation and the session with everyone.
Now, some of you who've attended other process mining sessions, you know that we always like to start everything with this quote. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And the reason we like this quote is it usually aligns to the reason that we've all gathered to learn a little bit more about ServiceNow, take that knowledge, go back, apply it, get more value out of your investment in the platform. But it also aligns to the solution that we'll be talking about here today, process mining, which is designed to help you x-ray the different workflows and business processes you have running in your organization and start to show you where and how you could be doing better for everyone involved. What we'll be doing here today is we'll do a quick little process mining 101 for those of you that just stumbled upon the topic for the first time. We want to make sure that you're aware of what process mining is, why it's important, the additional value that it provides. Then we'll introduce you to the new process mining evaluation projects that have been activated on your instances as you've upgraded to Xanadu. We'll talk a little bit about some of the interesting use cases that you can use these evaluation projects for. And then I'm going to turn the floor over to Damien, and he's actually going to demonstrate live how you can do all these different use cases in your instances today, if you're at the Xanadu level or above. And then lastly, after you get super excited about what you just saw, there's probably about 400 hours of our team's voices out there on the internet. We don't want you to have to watch them all, so we're going to point you at some of the more valuable ones if you're just getting started out. And of course, we'll get your questions answered throughout the session. Please, if you do have questions, put them in the Q&A. The rest of the team will answer them. And then as we get to the end of the session, if we still have time, we'll answer as many as we can live for the larger group. All right, the process mining 101. So with everything we do in life, whether it be a webinar like this one or a business process, when we design or plan things, we have a vision in our head for how those things should play out. And when we design our business processes, we design for both completeness and efficiency to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. Now, unfortunately, what we design isn't always what plays out in reality. The reality is not all the work is going to be flowing through the optimal path, and that's going to have a negative impact on the experience somebody requesting a service might be having, as well as the people trying to deliver that service. The challenge that most organizations face is seeing that reality so they can make the necessary adjustments and improvements to the process. And this is where process mining comes in. Process mining is going to automate our ability to start to see that reality, to show us how the process is performing in real life, right? It's going to show us the rework loops, the things ping-ponging between different teams, the things getting stuck in an on hold or a waiting call or an approval state for an ungodly amount of time. And now that we have that accelerated visibility into our reality, that's going to start to speed up our ability to make the necessary adjustments or improvements to the process. Now, some people say, wait a minute, Dan, we already have a whole bunch of dashboards that give us visibility into our processes. Like, how is this different? Well, those traditional dashboards that you have are great at helping us ask and answer important questions like how many incidents, cases, tickets, whatever it might be, did we work? Which types were they? How long did it take to close those things? And probably most importantly, how are we doing it as it relates to our targets that we've set for our KPIs? And are we improving our cycle times? All super important questions that our more traditional dashboards help us ask and answer. Right? But here's the deal, right? Information tends to be one of the most addictive and contagious things out there, right? You give somebody a little bit and they always want more. So the first thing that happens when we get one of those dashboards out the door is that somebody in leadership starts asking questions like you see here below on the slides, like where is our process getting stuck? Like why are we missing our targets? Right? Why are things trending in the direction? And process mining starts to help us ask and answer all of those follow-up questions, like where is the process getting stuck? Where is there any unnecessary rework happening in the process? Where are we spending or wasting the most time? Which vendors are speeding us up and which ones are slowing us down? And my all-time personal favorite, I think every customer that we've ever worked with has asked for the same report. So much so that I've given it a name. I like to call it the finger pointing report. Like everybody wants to know who's holding on to the work the longest. I need to know who's holding on to the work the longest. And these are the types of questions that process mining allows us to start asking and answering, essentially getting us to the why behind a lot of our KPIs. And we can apply this process mining capability to the single table process here, where we're looking at how incidents are moving from state to state in the process and the volume and the velocity between those transitions. Or if we want to look at, let's say, that finger pointing report, instead of looking at how work is moving from state to state in the process, we can start to look at how the work is moving from assignment group to assignment group, identifying those rework loops and the things that are getting stuck, waiting to be transferred from one team to another. There's so much opportunity to streamline how work moves from group to group in an organization. And examples like this helps us identify where the biggest improvement opportunities might be. If you happen to be using us for a more robust workflow, let's say like an HR lifecycle event like onboarding, we use something called a multi-dimensional map to give us end-to-end visibility into those processes that have a little bit more depth to them and many more tasks. These multi-dimensional maps are fantastic at helping us dig into our software catalog, our service catalog requests. Because if you think about the two primary bottlenecks that exist in every single catalog request, you've got the approval step of the process and then the fulfillment tasks themselves. While a report might be able to show you what the overall fulfillment time is, if you really want to understand where you're leaking air from your tires, you're going to want to start looking at the data this way. And then, heaven forbid, you're running a process outside of the ServiceNow platform, but it does happen every now and then. We do offer up that ability to ingest that external process data into the ServiceNow platform, maybe using the workflow data fabric to help with that ingestion and apply process mining to that. This happens to be an example of some smart recruiters data that we're looking at our hiring process. Now, some of you might be saying to yourself, okay, these process maps, like they look super powerful, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. I know that was my first reaction the first time I saw a visualized process map like the ones I just ran through there. Well, I've got great news. First, Damien is going to be walking you through how to use those maps today. And we have a whole bunch of recordings as well to help you. And the second part is that process mining on the ServiceNow platform isn't just those visualized process maps. Every process mining project also has a summary and insight page that provides some immediate visibility into where you might have some opportunities to improve and helps you narrow down the process data before you even get to those spaghetti maps. And this is going to streamline your process analysis efforts. All right. So now that you've had the quick glimpse into the power and value that is available to you in the platform with process mining, just like a kid whose friend gets one of those sweet motorized monster trucks or Barbie Corvettes, you might be saying to yourself, I want to turn. Or maybe more of a, I'd love to try this with my own data. Well, we've heard that a lot. So what we've done as of the Xanadu release is start to provide free process mining evaluation projects in all of our customers' instances. So when you upgrade to Xanadu, you will find the process mining workspace has been enabled. And if you open up that process mining workspace, there'll be a process mining evaluation project for incident. This is going to allow you to mine incidents that have closed in the last 7 days, up to 3,600 incidents. And then when you go to Yokohama Patch 2, you will see evaluation projects for HR case and customer service case as well. Same boundaries, last 7 days of closed work, up to 3,600 cases, but they'll be there for you. Now, these projects are just meant to give you a taste, a feel for what your process improvement life would be like if you were to unleash the full power of process mining on your process data. Like many customers have said to me, hey, Dan, process mining is really addicting. I keep finding more opportunities I want to pursue. Well, these evaluation projects are meant to get you hooked, right? You can't edit or adjust them, but we've packaged enough capability into them to allow you to explore some very, very common use cases with your own data on the platform. The first use case being looking for automation or self-service opportunities by isolating work that is taking longer than 2 minutes and less than 15 minutes or 30 minutes to move from an in-progress state to a resolved state. The logic there being if it's taking less than 2 minutes, you've already automated it. But if it's taking longer than 2 minutes and less than, let's say, 15, you haven't automated it yet. But a human isn't doing all that much complex problem solving in there. It's probably a data update, a knowledge base, or a KB article share, or some sort of password reset, or something like that. Um, be- so there's lots of opportunity inside of this small subset of the data. And process mining is going to allow you to isolate that data and dig into it. And Damien's going to show you that as part of the demonstration. And you can do that with the evaluation project. Now, because all everyone wants to talk about these days is AI agents, you can take that same exact scenario and we'll say in this case that it'll help you find some potential tools that you can create for your AI agents to use as they look to autonomously solve problems for you. Same exact use case, but we're just kind of framing it a little bit differently in terms of helping us find tools that our AI agents can use moving forward. These evaluation projects are also going to allow you to do the very powerful multi-hop analysis or finger pointing report, as I like to call it. So most organizations have issues where work is not taking the optimal path or is being routed to the wrong or multiple teams as part of a process. Well, process mining is great at helping you identify these situations as well. And then there's idle time analysis, right? Process mining can help you understand where you might have resourcing issues or opportunities, right? Looking at situations where work might just be sitting there for hours or days before it even moves into that in progress state is something that's really helpful as you start to look for opportunities to reclaim some productivity time for the organization. Now, these are just some of the types of process improvement opportunities that process mining can help you identify. There's definitely more of them out there. Will you be able to do all of them with the evaluation projects? No. But those are the ones that I just ran through. You certainly will be able to do. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Damien, and he's going to run you through how you will do those things.
Fantastic.
Damien, you out there?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. Yes, and let me give you a
Perfect.
second and share my screen. Replace. And let's go over to share. Okay, you should see my instance. And the first thing I'm going to do, and just to revisit what Dan had mentioned about the three evaluation projects, you see here in my instance, and my instance is Yokohama Patch 2, we do in fact see the three evaluation projects. You see one for incident, you see one for customer case, and you can see the tables that we're looking at here as well that are available to us. Now, you will also notice in your instance, that depending on the state of your instance, you may have those evaluation projects in various states. In fact, you may see one that are available. That means that data is already there that has been analyzed. They also could be in new as well, which means it has not been analyzed yet. You can easily analyze that by going to the three dots and hit Mine Project Sample. We've done that already here. It's already available to us, so we can start digging in. So if I click into that incident evaluation project, the first thing we'll see is our summary and insights. We'll notice a few things right off the bat. Information about our last week's worth of data, again, up to 3,600 records. We'll notice that here in the very top left. We're looking at the incident table. We've noticed we've analyzed 3,600 records. We also notice a couple of other things like my average duration, 11 days to closure, as well as number of routes to closure. In this case, we have 1,300. So some good information that is being exposed to us about our data that we analyzed, including things like average time to completion of records over time, and even distribution of records by time to completion. As we scroll down, we get a wealth of information about our data as well through our improvement opportunities. These are born out of both rule-based and automated pattern detectors to help us identify inefficiencies. We've included a number of those in these evaluation projects to expose inefficiencies. So you see some examples here. We have rework, have 3 pages of them, extreme duration, ping pong of work between in progress and awaiting caller. as well as some interesting information about each one of these, like the number of records, the additional average duration that it took beyond my 11 days of average for this set of records. So this 163 records, which accounts for 5% of my total analysis, is adding an extra 2 weeks. So we know the impact of what this did right here, as well as the total inefficiency that this is impacting for this set of records. 5 years of inefficiency. And that all we're doing there is that 2 weeks of duration multiplied by my 163 records. So this is pretty impactful. It maybe gives me an easy way to identify where we should be focused on. I'm not going to focus on that here. What I want to do is dive directly into the analyst workbench and help identify that one use case that Dan mentioned about, hey, where should we automate and leverage AI agents even more? So as I dive into the analyst workbench, if you noticed I was right here, we're going to go into this map that we're going to be exposed to. This is our discovered map that we're going to see for our incidents again over the past week. And we're looking at two things that are changing through its life cycle of an incident. We notice them here on the right in terms of views, both the state and the assignment group. Those are the two things that are changing through its life cycle. And we can see evidence of that from our process start through different assignment groups, through different states. Now, one thing I do want to point out, and we can see that here, we're only seeing 25% of the connections, which means we're not seeing all the complexity of our of the routes to closure. We can easily see that by increasing this slider bar to understand a little bit more complexity, and you can see how complex it can get very quickly. But in this scenario, what I really want to focus on is understanding where work is taking a very short amount of time, where we probably should be using automation or even an AI agent. So in this case, I'm going to do is focus solely on the state changing. And I can clearly just click on this and just look at the progression of my incidents from start to finish. And again, we're just looking at 25% of the connections, but I can start looking at that complexity right from here. And again, we can do the same thing and increase our connections. But in this scenario, what we want to do is identify all of the incidents that are taking a short amount of time. We know the average is taking 11 days, but I care about specifically the incidents that go from in progress to resolve very quickly. We do see a lot that are taking days. Okay, well, I think we have an idea, maybe our hypothesis, that it's taking a lot shorter for some of these. And those are the ones we want to focus on. We'll do that by using our advanced filters. And even though they're called advanced, they're super simple to use. And we'll use those to identify that. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to hit our transitions. And I'm going to build that out for you very easily. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to look at our state. And we care about the ones that are going into in progress. And we care about happening the first time. Next thing we're going to do is we care about going to the next activity, which is going to be resolved. And we'll hit resolve. And we care about this being the last time. Now we want to do is make it time bound. We want to give it a constraint that is specific to what I care about that we feel we should be automating. And what I'm going to do for my organization is like, well, from the first step to the second step, I'm going to save any incident that takes between 2 minutes, because anything that's being done in 2 minutes is probably already automated, but I'm going to go up to 30 minutes. So anything from 2 minutes to 30 minutes, I want to expose that went from directly from in progress to resolved. This will give me an identify and focus on just those incidents. And I'll hit add constraint and I'll hit apply. Now we went from 3,600 records. I want to point out we went to 125. We've identified 125 incidents that have taken less than 30 minutes specifically, right? And that gives me a very easy way to start saying, well, from this environment, I know that we have incidents that are doing that. Tell me more about these incidents. In the evaluation project, you can start looking at each one of these and start getting some great information about them as well. Where my record's coming from, where they're going to. In the evaluation project within the investigate, you will have available to you two options. Show records, which will provide a wealth of information to get some evidence of what kind of incidents are these, or even filtering on these. In a fully licensed environment, you'll get these other attributes that apply machine learning to also provide additional value and evidence of why this incident went to in progress or took this long to go into resolve, things like that. But in this scenario, what I care about, because we can do this very easily, is look at the actual incidents themselves. And right from here, we will also go directly to my incidents. And guess what? Even from here, it provides some value. And why is that? Well, we can look at the short description and get some ideas like, what are we seeing here? I'm seeing a lot of VPN issues, maybe password resets. I think we can do better there with being able to provide an automation or even self-service to potentially alleviate some of these that are taking less than 30 minutes. And that gives me a quick way to really hone in on where we should be automating and taking some of these out. And by the way, some of these are already self-service, but we do see some are in email, they're in the portal, they're coming through phone. I can use my breakdown filters to understand who are doing these and different areas of focus, whether it be category and as well as priority, right? So you have this ability to really start honing in on one specific area very, very easily. So maybe I care about, hey, what is coming through the email channel that we could potentially automate better? I can easily just apply and hit email and just look at that subset of my 19 records in my process map and do the same thing at looking at the records. So very easy way to start analyzing this and understanding where we should be applying AI agents and automation in general. All right. So I'm going to transition into my next one for multi-hop. I did want to focus and show you one other little trick that's really, really helpful. Building these transitions, you saw how easy it was. You can also save these very easily as well, and you can do that right from here. When I save these, they become persistent. Maybe I want to check these every month or every quarter to start identifying additional automation that can be done right from here. All right, so let's transition to the next one, and I'll go into our next project, which will focus specifically on our case. So in this scenario, we're going to very similarly, we're looking at a subset of my data, last week's worth of data. In this case, I'm looking at 2,300 records because perhaps we didn't have that many records over the last week. We also see the same thing, average duration, number of routes. By the way, number of routes may also indicate complexity. If I have, you may have a specific number of paths to closure you expect to have. 1,100 different paths to closure may seem like a lot. It's not uncommon to have lots of variations, and those variations could indicate complexity or even rework or recategorization, things like that. So right from here, we also see some interesting things in terms of, I mentioned earlier in the summary and insights, we expose other different attributes for improvement opportunities. By the way, right from here, you can also just focus on any one of these and look at just these, the set of data for my rework and look at these 472 records right in the workbench right from here, as well as, and in your instance, have the ability of looking at the records directly. So let's dive into it. Once we get to the workbench, we also see a similar map. In this case, in this scenario, we're also seeing the case workflow from start to finish. One other great component capability that I want to expose to the team and everyone is this bottleneck analysis, which is located here under model options. This, similarly to the improvement opportunities, allows you to identify bottlenecks, right? Time gaps between different elements. And in this case, what we'll see two things, both the state state to state as well as assignment group to assignment group, the amount of time it takes to get from one to another. It defaults by unique occurrences, like the number of records in this case, and it shows me where my biggest time gaps are for the largest number of records. In this case, from resolved to closed, it's taking an average of 6 days for 1,700 records. And in that bucket of records, there's 28 years of inefficiency. Can we do better there to close those records? Perhaps, right? Maybe, we can have a business rule or a workflow that says if we don't hear back from the customer within a day, we'll auto close it. right? So this is a great way to expose where my biggest time gaps are. Another great trick is to sort it by total duration, and this will sort it by the total amount of time that is being impacted by these transitions. So we see resolved to close, canceled to resolved, in progress to resolved. You can see that. So this could become, again, a list for teams to start improving income very easily. And each one of these, by the way, becomes a filter so I can dive directly into these 1700 records right from here. All right. So the first thing we're going to do for this scenario, again, this scenario, we're going to focus on multi-hop. And what does that mean? Well, I see and I care about when work is being reassigned more than once. I want to our goal is for every case to be resolved by the initial team it's assigned to. In this case, what I want to do is focus on, again, we're looking at two things changing, both the state and the assignment group. In this case, I'm going to focus on the assignment group. And this will paint a picture of your process map that's specific just to assignment groups transitioning from one to another through its life cycle. And we do, in fact, see, guess what? We see cases that are being reassigned more than once, right? And I want to really focus on those. And again, what we're going to do here is focus and use on our advanced filters and specifically on our transition filters again in a very simple way. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, in this case, we're going to focus on our assignment group. And this is even simpler than the last one. All we're going to do here is I don't care which assignment group it is, we'll say it's anything. And all I care about is if the next assignment group is also anything. We just want to know when there's another assignment group involved in this workflow for our cases. So in this case, all we're doing here from one assignment group directly followed by another. And I'll hit apply. Now, I just want to mention this happened very quickly. In your instance, this will become a scheduled task. I had pre-done this before just to make things a little simpler and quicker today. And those will show up in your scheduled tasks, which are located here. You can see the evidence of them here. They'll go from in progress to complete. I just want to point that out for everyone so there's no misconception there. So now we focused on specifically, we went from 2,300 records. Now we're down to 867. These are the cases that had a multi-hop, a reassignment of that case from one assignment group to another. And this gives us an easy way to say, okay, well, what's causing this, right, number one, and where it's happening. And again, we could do the same thing here. We're only seeing 20% of those cases. I can easily increase this to see more complexity and start understanding the impact of those reassignments as well. You notice we have not only these nodes you do have the ability to start diving into and trying to understand where did this data come, where did these records come from. You can see, well, most of these came from Process Start. That's great. But I do see some of these coming from IT Support Americas. It's coming back from them, right? And why is that happening, right? So even the transitions we can start digging into, leveraging the histogram to understand the duration, the time it took. Some of these are taking 12 hours to make that transition from one assignment group to another. But that's not too bad. But guess what? We have some that are taking 4 days, and we can apply filters just on those and look at just those records. And we can even look at repetitions and understand, well, is this happening more than once? In fact, it is. Most of these are taking one time, but we do have some that we're doing it 3 times. And again, we can start diving into the investigate phase where we can look at the records and even filter on transition in the evaluation project. Again, in a fully licensed environment, you do have these other capabilities in the transitions to analyze the work notes, apply machine learning on some of the unstructured data like the short description, or even apply root cause analysis on the key contributors of why this transition even happened. Maybe it's a certain category type or priority, things like that. You can apply that to any field within the case table. So that gives me a great way to start understanding some of this complexity. And secondly, and similarly, like I showed earlier, we can start doing some interesting things to say, well, We have these 867 records. What type of incidents are they? We can easily generate these and start taking a look at the records. And again, this will become a scheduled task in the background. In this case, I already had done it before. It'll create a view of those records that went into this assignment group. And again, we can do some, again, interesting things and start looking at perhaps the short description. Are there some trends or commonality that we could potentially, do a better job of assigning this to the right assignment group the first time, or enabling that assignment group to be able to answer these questions themselves? All right. One other thing I did want to point out here, which is really, really helpful, and I did mention this earlier when we talked about breakdown filters, is also the variation analysis. I mentioned we do have 1,100 routes to closure for our 2,300 records. That means we have 1,100 unique routes to closure for those records, which seems like a very big number, and that's not as uncommon as you think. But this gives us a way to start looking at that very easily, and that's located here in variation analysis. And from here, we can start looking at and understanding what are the optimal paths, and show me some of the less than optimal paths and the impact. And we can do that very easily. By default, we're sorting this by highlights, but let's take a look at most records. So out of my 2,300 records, I have 166 with an average of 1 week and 1 day taking 7 steps. You can see that at the bottom of the map, going from process start to IT support Americas to new to work in progress, resolve and close. Seems pretty good for that. We have other variations of that, right? You can see that as I scroll down, they're not very different, but they are some variations, not really impacting the average duration. But there's a great way to start looking at outliers, ones that are impacting us the most, and we can do that by looking at most steps. And right from here, I can take a look at, it's just one record, but I have records are doing 23, 24, 22 records, 22 steps. And you can see evidence of, oh my goodness, it's a lot of reassignment, it's a lot of rework, it's a lot of back in progress. And guess what? The average duration is way higher than my 13 days. In fact, these are 3 weeks, 1 month. And I can easily start, looking at these ones that are, less than optimal and analyzing these as well. Wanted to point that out. Great way to identify less than optimal paths and taking action from that. And by the way, we can take action directly from here. If I didn't mention this earlier, having the ability to collaborate very easily, even being able to take a note. And let's pick on Fred and say, hey, we need to address this reassignment issue. Let's attach a snapshot. Fred will get this link to this process analysis with this screenshot so we can start collaborating. Additionally, we can also start improving by attaching this to a continuing improvement management framework or in record or an automation request. Maybe we need to have a flow designer built out or a business rule to accommodate a new business impact that's affecting this workflow, right? So you have easy ways to start outputting this and becoming a great way to improve your organization. All right, we will transition into the last use case, which is identifying idle time. And again, I'm going to go back to my initial page. We're going to focus this case on HR case, where we're looking at HR case tables specifically, again, up to 3,600 records for the last week. So similarly, we'll see a very similar view here where we're looking at our HR case, again, 2,700 records, 15-day average, and 540 routes to closure. Similar information about overview about the analysts, what the records we've analyzed in terms of time to completion, as well as improvement opportunities. Again, as Dan mentioned, we can't edit these, but this is meant to provide some easy examples within your data to provide evidence of where you can improve. And these improvement opportunities will also do the same thing for HR case in terms of rework, extreme duration. You can see examples of these as well. Again, just as a reminder, we'll identify the number of records, uh, creating that activity, the impact, and the total inefficiency. In a fully licensed environment or even your sub-production environment, you can create your own improvement opportunities as well, right? Ones that are specific to your organization. For example, you may decide that a specific HR case type needs to be in work in progress within 2 hours. When it's not work in progress within 2 hours, I need to know about it so we can take action, right? So things that are specific to your organization can be included very, very easily. Okay, let's dive into this next use case. So in this scenario, what we're going to do is understand where idle time is impacting. And what does that mean, right? So it's taking way too long for our HR cases to go into a work in progress state, right? It's impacting our ESAT within the company. It's hurting our ability for our employees to actually affect change in their HR status, whatever it may be, right? We want to make sure we're serving our employees well. How do we do this better? We want to identify when that's happening. So the first thing we're going to do, again, in this scenario, we're looking at the same two things. We're looking at state and assignment group. In this view right now, we're looking at both, right? And again, we're only looking at 20% of the connections. In this scenario, I'm going to focus specifically on the state of the case as well. I'll hit that. It'll repaint that. Again, this may be done in the background the first time in your instance, and give me that view, again, 20% of my connections. And again, we can use the bottleneck analysis, start looking at what's slowing us down. But I want to know when it's taking too long to go from ready to work in progress, right? And in HR parlance, usually ready is that new state. But I want to know when it's taking, my average is 1 day. I want to know when it's taking more than a day, because obviously we definitely have some. I believe I have a hypothesis that that's impacting us. So we'll use the same methodology we showed earlier. We're going to use our transition filters to easily identify that. So we'll hit the transition filter, and what we're going to do here is build that out. Again, we'll use the state of the HR case to start with, and we'll do the state is. And again, for this HR case, our new is really the ready state, and I care about the first occurrence, right? And next thing we're going to do is our next activity is eventually followed by. Now you notice we have a couple of different descriptors here, directly, eventually, and we have the inverse of that as well. In this case, I care about anything that eventually goes into work in progress. If it took other deviations, I don't care. I want to know what's impacting that. That's why we're going to pick the eventually. So next thing, we'll hit the state of the case is work in progress. And this again, we'll hit the first one that it happens. In this scenario, we're going to hit another and add another constraint, right? So from the first step to the second step, we're going to say anything that takes longer than 1 day, right? That's the minimum duration. So I'll hit and add that constraint. I'll hit apply, and it'll build that in the background. And you can see, I want to show you evidence of how this would be in your instance, that will go from in progress. And we'll notice that we'll see what it's doing. We're looking at just the HR case, and we're looking at the HR case going from ready, eventually followed by work in progress that's taking longer than a day. This will take a moment or two. It'll go from in progress. You'll see a percentage show up and also provide that same view that we've seen in the other two, and we're done. So it should take a very short amount of time. We could hit view result, and now we'll see in this case, 725 records out of my 2,700 that is in fact taking longer than a day, right? So same process we can take in this scenario, where we can start looking at different aspects of this map and drilling into this. What's taking so long? So here we go. In this scenario, I'm going to look at my from ready to work in progress. We notice 538 of them are taking 5 days, right? So I can click in just directly into this and start looking at the impact of that. There's 538 unique HR cases. But guess what? This 552 total, what does that mean? That means we have cases that are doing this repetitively. In fact, we have at least one that's done it twice, right? And the impact that is visualized right here. 7 years of total duration that's packaged up in these 538 records. Should we start focusing here? The answer is probably yes, right? And you can see additional information in the histogram in terms of duration. Most of these are taking 0 to 2 days, but guess what? We have ones that are taking weeks, longer than a week, even as close to 5 months. Can we focus on some of these and understand why these outliers are happening? Because guess what? This is impacting our average duration to get into work in progress. And we can do the same thing here as well in terms of showing the records, getting evidence of what's causing that work in progress. Are we not assigning this correctly? But right from here, again, you'll have that ability of looking at the records and understanding what is causing that through looking at the records of maybe the short description or even description of those records from that list of records. In your instance with a fully licensed environment, you'll get these other capabilities like being able to analyze the unstructured data in the work notes, even the short description or description, as well as a root cause analysis on why this occurred. Give me the contributing factors. Is it a specific assignment group? Is it a specific HR service? Things like that, right? So we can take action. And through the breakdown filters on the left-hand side, right, we do have ones we include like assignment group, HR service, open by department, as well as priority. Again, you could start comparing some of these and diving into any one of these as well. So one of the things I noticed right away when I looked at assignment groups, we're sorting this by most records, most of these in global talent. And I said, well, 1 week, 1 month, wow, some of these, a lot of variations. One that sticks out right away is my HRIS global. 2 months seems like a lot longer than everyone else. I can easily just start looking at HRS globals, those 23 records, and even start looking at those records as well. So an easy way to start recognizing what is impacting my ability to not go into work in progress very easily. And again, building that view, showing those records. And this is an example of when I hit that show records, it'll create that view. You can also see evidence of that here as well, right? It's building that view of records for me so I can take a look and investigate what is causing my work in progress to take so long, or doing it from here as well. So when I build that view, I was showing those mining records, and I can do that from here as well, show records. And again, I can take different perspectives and look in different aspects of what is impacting my ability to close an HR case in this scenario in the time frame I expected. What is impacting it? In this case, I want to solve for idle time. I want to make sure all my cases go into work in progress within a day. I want to know what's impacting that and showing those give me some evidence of what's causing that to happen. So here's that list of HR cases. Again, we can start looking at some commonality threads, right? So is it specific HR services that are impacting, or even things like I see a lot of travel requests, you know, or is it, I see time off. Can we do better about, are we understaffed? Maybe these are good things to be self-service. Maybe we can do better of even marketing some of the self-service capabilities for time off. Why is it going to work, and not going to work in progress within a day? So this can provide some evidence of where we should focus to alleviate some of this idle time very, very easily. And I think I've covered it all. Dan, did I miss anything?
I do not think you missed anything, other than the fact that most people right now are probably multitasking, and trying exactly what you're trying to, or what you just showed them how to do in their own instances,
I
which
hope
is
so.
definitely a lot of questions that have come in. And we've done our best to answer them, but we'll answer a few more, then we're going to answer some of them live as we go here. Let's just continue moving along. So I put this in the chat because so many of you said, this is awesome. Like, is this recording going to be made available so we can we start trying these things on our own, and we kind of anticipated that would be the reaction. So what we've done already is out on the ServiceNow community, we've already recorded these individual use cases and how to do them and posted them out there in this how to use the process mining evaluation project in your instance post. So the 3 use cases that Damien just went through, as well as kind of the iterations and I guess, yeah, I'll just say the iterations of them for each of the individual workflows, IT, CSM, HR, they're already out there. I put the link to this post in the chat so you can find it there and start working with this immediately. Now, questions. Please get your questions in the Q&A. There's already been a bunch of them asked, so I'm going to run through real quick just for the larger group some of the more common questions and get them answered. There's one question I think everyone is asking, like, hey, this is a very common question. Is this free? These evaluation projects are free, but to unleash the full power of process mining in your instances, there is an entitlement that you need to acquire. There's different ways to acquire that entitlement. I would just suggest that you reach out to your account teams that you work with to get a better understanding of whether you're already entitled to process mining, and if not, what what the best option for your organization would be. Going through the list here, there was a number of questions where people were saying, like, wait a minute, I'm not really fully sure if I understand the scope of these evaluation projects. So these evaluation projects, they're going to be available in your instance in perpetuity. They're not going away unless you choose to get rid of them. But you will always only be allowed to mine up to the last 7 days worth of work, whether that be incident, HR case, or customer service case. So the last 7 days worth of closed work, or I should say incidents that have closed in the last 7 days, up to 3,600. HR cases that have closed in the last 7 days, up to 3,600. So that you can keep using these projects as many times as you want for as long as you want, but you're always going to be limited to 3,600 records, and those records will have been closed in the last 7 days. So again, if you really want to harness the power of process mining and look for things, you're going to want to talk to your account team. In that sense, this is meant to give you that little taste, kind of, I like to say, the gateway drug to get you hooked on what could be possible with process mining. There were a couple of folks who said, hey, I went to check this out and I only see the 3 little dots and I don't see the mine button. That's probably because you're on Yokohama patch 1. We didn't unlock the process mining evaluation projects until Yokohama patch 2. For those that are in Yokohama, in Xanadu, you'll have the incident 1. You should be able to mine right away. But if you've already moved to Yokohama, you will not see the mine option until you move to patch 2 with those projects. Just going through the list here. There was a question about, hey, can we explore process mining in a lower environment, like a sub-production environment? The answer to that question is sure you can. The important piece there, though, is there's some logistics in terms of cloning down with the audit log data that we use to kind of create these maps. By default, most customers don't clone with the audit log data. The beauty of having these evaluation projects turned on in your production environment is if you want to see it with your own data, that audit log data already exists. So one of the drivers behind making these available in your instances was to eliminate some of that logistical headache that people had to go through. Then there was a very good question, an interesting question that both Bilal and myself took a stab at answering around implementation. And the beautiful thing about process mining, especially our in-platform approach to process mining, which is significantly different than some of the more traditional approaches to process mining, is there really isn't that much of an implementation. I typically like to joke with customers that if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, or if you can build a ServiceNow report, you can start to visualize your processes in a matter of minutes. The implementation with process mining is really just turning on the plugins. And then once you turn on the plugins, creating your first project is like a 5 to 10 minute exercise. The real effort with process mining is doing what Damien just showed you how to do. And as you saw, it's not really a lot of effort. It's just a little bit of a learning curve. But like the time is not spent in creating the projects. The time is spent doing what you want to do, which is digging into your process data and understanding the opportunities to improve. And that's that's kind of what process mining is all about. It's not like a weeks to months type of implementation. Most of our customers are able to start finding improvement opportunities within the first hour that they've turned on the plugin and created their first project. And then, I posted in the chat this idea of now that we've, it's pretty easy to use and get started with, but like then we want to scale it to more people in the organization. I posted in the chat a webinar that we did around scaling process mining inside of your organization. But from an implementation perspective, this is a pretty straightforward thing to get started with, and you'll see some value almost immediately once you turn on the plugins. See if there's any other questions in the list that we didn't already address. Go ahead, Damien, if you're ahead of me.
No, there was one question I just want to revisit. I thought it was a great one about, hey, we're relatively early in our ServiceNow implementation. Do we need to wait, right? Should we wait a year or 6 months or some number, right? And the answer is, and I've experienced this with a number of different customers. The answer is no, you don't have to wait. The question becomes, how quickly do you want to start improving? A lot of customers, what they'll typically do is re-platform some use case, whether it's ITSM, it really doesn't matter. And they don't have time, money, energy to redesign the process to in their re-platform, onto ServiceNow. And that's okay, I get it. But with process mining, this gives you an ability within days of going live on with new data or even a pilot to understanding how, where there are inefficiencies, so you can start improving that process quickly. And I'm talking days. I was talking to a customer recently where they just implemented incident problem change. It was like a month or so. And what they found, they actually ran the evaluation project. They found this through this methodology was, wow, they had no idea their triage team was opening every incident as closed. They just had no idea. They didn't have the governance and guidelines in place to disallow that from happening. And that was a compliance issue for this organization. So they've exposed them to, allowed them to improve within a month of being deployed, right? So this huge value even very early.
That's a very good point. And actually, if you go to the ServiceNow community, we have a good article called "Am I Ready for ServiceNow Process Mining?" The answer is, of course, yes, but we walk through some of the things that Damien just mentioned there. Going through the questions still, one of my favorite questions: can we use process mining on custom tables created? Absolutely. And those are actually our favorite. And I would say this, if you are going to be mining a custom application you built, please reach out to your account team and have them invite us. Look, we love process mining and working with customers, whether it be incidents, changes, customer service cases, HR cases, but we see a lot of those. We love it when a customer has created a custom application and wants to apply process mining. It's very interesting for us. So if you got one of those scenarios, we'd love to be part of that experience with you when you turn process mining on for the first time. Oh, here's another good one. Can we use process mining, historical runs of process mining? Absolutely. It's one of the more common use cases is to use process mining to do before and after a process change analysis. So like on one side, you can actually put the map side by side in the workspace that you just saw there. And on one side, you can say, show me all the work that closed prior to a process change. And on the other side, show me all the work that closed after the process change and see some of the comparison statistics and where there might be any adverse effects to that process change you made. It's a very, very common use case. All right, good question. Somebody is asking, like, this looks awesome, but is there any impact to the performance of the instance? And the answer to that question is no. We've designed the solution in a way to eliminate any sort of impact on the performance of the instance. When we do the mining, it actually breaks the query up into very small, targeted, highly indexed chunks. So it's not like this one big massive query. And then for all the heavy duty compute, we're using the machine learning infrastructure in your data center. That same machine learning infrastructure that say like task intelligence or predictive intelligence is using. So all that heavy duty lifting is not going to impact your instance. It's designed specifically to eliminate any sort of performance impact. I think I've got all the questions. We'll give you kind of one more chance to get some questions in the Q&A if we've not addressed them already. But as you do that, I do want to point you at, as I mentioned earlier, there is no shortage of material out there if you want to learn more about process mining, but you don't want to, we don't want you to go through all 400 hours of it. I mentioned this in the chat to some that were asking. There is a now learning course called Process Mining Essentials, and as part of that course, it does spin up a lab instance, so you can get hands-on if you don't want to start, if you want to do a little bit more in terms of creating a project outside of what you can do with the evaluation projects. That is a great option for you. That now learning course that's out there. I've mentioned this a few times, the community forum. We post a lot of content on the community in the ServiceNow community, I should say, and within the Process Mining Product Hub. So make sure you check out the Process Mining Product Hub. You will find a lot of things. One of the things you will find there is something called the Guide to Getting Started with Process Mining. We've posted that in the chat as well. This essentially is the curriculum that we would walk people through if they said, we just get entitlement to process mining, where should we start? So there's a link to a little 2-minute explainer. There's a link to a demonstration and a recording of kind of the overview presentation. There's a link to a recording that shows you how to create your first couple of projects, one for state and one for assignment group. There's a link that walks through all the different bells and whistles in that analyst workbench that Damien just went through. And then there's a link to something we call the process mining use case series. We recognized very early that process mining was a new muscle for a lot of our customers and ourselves here at ServiceNow. And just like when you're learning a new exercise, maybe on a Peloton course, they give you that short little video to kind of show you how to do the exercise. We've done the same thing with common process mining use cases. There's about 10 to 15 of these little recordings that we've posted, things like how to use process mining to do SLA breach analysis, how to use process mining to identify automation opportunities, how to use process mining to identify approval bottlenecks. So these little 5-minute recordings are part of that use series. It's a great way to get inspired in terms of what is possible with process mining, and a great way to learn it as well. We do host something we call the Process Mining Academy. That's a monthly webinar series that we host where we do deep dives into different areas like, hey, process mining for customer service management, how to use the histogram, what's new in Yokohama with process mining. We have a session coming up, I think it's tomorrow, Thursday, in which Roz, who's not here today, but she'll be hosting the session tomorrow, where we kind of look at process mining and CSDM and how they kind of play nice together type of thing. So it's going to be a really interesting session. Again, you can register for that Process Mining Academy on the community site. And then lastly, if you're not already tired of talking to us, with this team here on this call, we host the monthly office hours via the community. Really more of an open forum. We don't really come with a specific topic to talk about unless there's something we'd like to update everyone on. It's really you bring your questions to us and we spend time answering them. If you don't bring questions, we just talk about like our favorite sporting event, what's coming up at Knowledge and all those other things. But it's a great way to connect with us on a regular basis if you just want to chat about process mining. All right. Oh, lastly, if you are attending Knowledge, there are a number of different sessions out there. Many of them are filling up quickly. I've actually heard in the chat here today that some of them might already be filled up. But we've got a few sessions. We'll be doing a roadmap and strategy session on Wednesday. The Now on Now team is doing a session on how they're using process mining to look at how, some of the agentic AI systems that they've rolled out. So they're mining agentic AI data, which is kind of cool. One of our customers, Cigna, is going to be joining us to talk about how they've rolled process mining out and some of their initial findings. And then there is a hands-on lab scheduled. There also is a hands-on lab session scheduled within CreatorCon. So if you've tried to get into this one and you weren't able to, check out the CreatorCon lab for process mining, and maybe that's still got some openings. I'm not as tied to that, so I don't know. All right. Last chance for romance. Any additional questions? I don't know, Damien or team, have you been monitoring that as I was just running through some of that stuff? Is there anything else that's come in that's worth mentioning live?
I don't think so. I think we're good at this point. Eduardo, anything that you can think of?
No, great questions, great volume of activity. You two rocked it today, so I think we're in good shape.
All right. With that, then, if there's no additional questions, we'll just say goodbye for today, and we're right on time. So
Dan, I guess you can turn into a pumpkin. I'd
I
like
can
to see
turn
that
into a
trick.
pump. We're now allowed to turn into a pumpkin
Awesome.
at this point. Appreciate everyone joining. If you've got questions, please post them to the community site or reach out to your account team. If you haven't already noticed, we love talking about this, so we're super happy to engage with you on this very exciting topic and opportunity we call process mining. And with that, happy mining, everyone.